live webcasts on manure management strategies, helping your horse, help the farm, and protect our water. Please note that you are able to ask questions during the presentation via the chat featured in the bottom left side of your screen. We will also have time at the end of the presentation for additional questions. Our presenter for this evening is Jamie Cohen from the University of Florida. And at this time, I'm actually going to turn it over to Holly Groshek from the Equine Land Conservation Resource for a short introduction.
Thank you, Gwen. We're happy to be here this evening as one of the co-hosts for the webcast. As Gwen mentioned, my name is Holly Groshek. I'm with Equine Land Conservation Resource, or ELCR. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, I'm just going to do a quick introduction. ELCR is a national 501c3 nonprofit organization that assists individuals and local organizations throughout the country that are working to keep land open and accessible to horses and for horse-related activity. Our organization provides a host of online conservation-related educational materials to the equine community in 6 core areas that you can see on your screen. So if you were to go to our website at www.elcr.org, you would see these 6 core issue areas in our resource library, and you could click on any one of the areas for informational resources. Note that we have best management practices listed as one of these 6 core areas, as we recognize the importance of educating landowners about BMPs on horse properties. And in 2014, we added a publication called Best Management Practices Can Help Your Bottom Line to our website as a basic guide to best management practices for horse properties, which you will hear more about later in this presentation. It's my pleasure to introduce to you now a member of our organization's advisory council, Ms. Jamie Cohen, who will be our program presenter this evening. As a member of our advisory council, Jamie serves as a technical resource to the organization in the area of best management practices for horse properties. In addition, for over 7 years, Jamie has worked for the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agriculture Services, Marion County Extension. As farm outreach coordinator, Jamie provides education on water quality, best management, and natural resources conservation issues to members of the local community. Because they represent a significant portion of the agriculture base in the area, horse farm owners and managers are specifically targeted for education about best management practices, or BMPs. Although her work is largely done in Marion County, she provides additional services and education for the entire state of Florida, as she is the only person involved specifically with equine farm management BMPs. A horse professional for over 16 years prior to joining the University of Florida, Jamie has managed prominent horse show barns and has extensive experience with veterinary medicine and in the thoroughbred industry. She has competed with hunter, jumpers, and event horses throughout her life and is currently working towards becoming a C1 steward for the United States Equestrian Federation. We are very pleased that Jamie agreed to join us this evening to share her vast expertise in the area of best management practices for horse properties. Jamie, I'd like to now turn the program over to you.
Thank you very much, Holly. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys can all hear me and I'm not too loud. I'm a good speaker, so if I'm too loud, please turn down your speakers. What we're going to talk to everybody about tonight is something, you know, we all have this problem, and it's something that no one really wants to talk about, but it's become, it's an international issue, it's a national issue. Each state handles it differently, each county within the state handle it differently. So I'm going to kind of give you a little overview on a national level and teach you how you can find out more within your state and your county about manure management so that we can help protect our water, the horses, try to improve things, and do the best we can. Okay, so back in the day, we all did this. I can remember years ago managing a farm where I adopted the pile. And, you know, before I knew there was something wrong, I didn't know there was anything wrong. Aside from the fact that the pile could catch on fire and be quite difficult, nobody thought anything of it. But it's changed a lot. So what is it that's changed about horse farms? And as I'm hoping, Gwen, if you can put up I did put some participation questions for everybody. One of the first questions, I'm kind of curious to find out what sort of manure management practices people have on their farm. Do you spread your manure, dumpster, pile and leave? Kind of give me an idea what you do so we can talk about that a little bit before we move on. Let me see. Oh, I see. A lot of people say they compost. That's great. Spread fresh manure, which is common. Pile and leave, which is also common. Well, I'm very impressed to see these numbers about farms that do compost. This is really good. Typically in Florida, at least the horse farms that I've gone to, about 60% of the farms in my county spread manure fresh, right from the stall into a spreader onto the fields. We do have a lot of dumpster use. The piling and leaving is decreasing a fair amount, and there is a good percentage, probably just about 20%, that compost actively, which is something we're really trying to promote, and I'm going to give everybody information about that tonight. But I do want to say before I progress, all of those things, all of those options, the fresh manure, the dumpster, piling and leaving, composting, these are all potentially viable options. It just kind of depends on the property, the number of horses, the topography, that kind of information. Okay, so what are the water quality concerns? It's nutrients, and nutrients aren't bad, like we fertilize our properties because it's needed nutrients. That's what helps grass grow. That's what helps things stay strong and healthy, right? Too many nutrients don't get utilized by the grass and even the weeds. Sediments from erosion, all these things can run off into the streams, rivers, lakes, springs. Things can leach into the ground, meaning seep into the ground. And underneath us is the aquifer, and that's the water that we all drink. And when we get too many nutrients, it can get harmful to fish, aquatic life. It can make it undrinkable for us. It can be a lot of problems. So we're going to talk tonight about best management practices. And I do apologize. I'm going to just take a sip of water because I'm getting a little hoarse already. Okay. So BMPs, they're best management practices, and these are science-based, common sense, field-tested, okay? Excuse me. I hope that wasn't too loud. These are things that they're really typical. It's just good management, and it's so many things that we all can do easily, not expensively, and these little steps, little management steps, it's kind of like let's say you're trying to lose weight, and every day it's a little bit of a practice every day, and if you practice appropriately every day, you're going to lose that weight. That's kind of the same thing at best management practices. It's just a little bit of practicing every day, okay? I apologize for the coughing. I hope that's not too bad. So, and here's the thing I want to stress. We're all guilty. Roads, rooftops, construction, septic tanks, all of it. It all causes problems for people. And horse farms and horses also are part of that problem. Fertilization. So I say if everyone just takes a little responsibility, then we can all go a long way to help saving things. Sorry. So how do the farms impact the water? Okay, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Fertilization, it's a big problem. There are different types of fertilizers. There's slow-release fertilizers that contain polymers to help us. There are standard inorganic fertilizers that in about 7 to 10 days they can be completely either utilized or go straight down to the water. It just depends. If you're adding fertilizer without properly soil testing and you're adding the wrong kind of fertilizer that your grass can't take up those nutrients, they don't get utilized, they go down to the water. If your soil is the wrong pH and you add fertilizer, oftentimes the fertilizer can't even get utilized properly by the grass and weeds. Okay, so all these things are, they can help increase nutrients to the water. And wasted money. Okay, overstocking the land. I meant to ask everybody a question. How many people fertilize on the farms where you are, either where your horses are boarded or that you own and manage yourself? Okay, so it looks like we're running about 50-50 here, more or less. Oh, here we go, big jump. Okay. Okay, well, so more people do not fertilize, which is actually more common on horse farms. However, what this means is, nutrients are in manure, nutrients are in urine, and fertilization is not bad, and I do want to stress that for everybody. It's improper fertilization and over fertilization that cause the troubles. It's not fertilization. Nutrients are not bad. It's when the nutrients can't get utilized. That's where we run into the problems. And it's nice to see that 60% of you don't fertilize. And if you do fertilize, I'm going to stress really soil testing. Because again, fertilizer is not bad. We just need to know that we're, as a best management practice, we soil test because that helps us know what we're using, know what's needed so we can use the correct rate of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, etc. So overstocking the land is another big problem. How many of you either own a farm or board your horse where you're either on dirt lots, the pastures have no grass, or just maybe there's a few too many horses on those pastures? Gwen, can you put that question up for me, please? Okay, it looks about 60. Well, that's good. That's great. That really makes me happy to see that. That's really nice. And I'm going to say this. It's a management issue. It also depends what kind of horse you have, how they're utilized, if they're show horses. There are a lot of variables that go into this. I mean, let's say you can have 30 horses on 10 acres, but if they're all halter horses, and those horses often don't go out very often, you can have some of the greenest pastures alive. And I have known farms that had that. They use dumpsters. It's really one of the most pristine farms, but their horses per acre is really excessive. So it's really a management thing. So this is great to see. Okay, when you overstock the land, that gets rid of the grass. Grass is what utilizes the nutrients. Okay, again, the nutrients are in the soil. And some of those, some soils like hold things like phosphorus. There are certain nutrients which are soil bound, certain nutrients which are water bound, certain nutrients which like nitrogen which can volatilize to the air. There's a lot of different ways that the nutrients are utilized. However, grass utilizes the nutrients, and so if there is no grass, oftentimes those nutrients have nowhere to go except down to the water again. And I am going to say this because there are people, you're going to sell your property, or at some point down in the future, the boarding facility is going to get sold, or you're looking for a new place. Everybody likes pretty. And the more grass you have, the prettier it is, the less erosion. Just from a pure business standpoint, it behooves us to try to maintain as much grass as we can on our property. Okay, manure and urine. And it's an interesting one for me because urine is actually higher in nitrogen, which it depends where you are. Some places it's phosphorus, some places it's nitrogen. In Marion County, Florida, where I live, the problem for us is nitrogen. In South Florida, it's phosphorus. However, manure and urine contain nitrogen in addition to some other things, but it's nitrogen that causes such excessive growth. Okay, and phosphorus too, but these things can cause excessive growth. They can make the water undrinkable. So I like to use this, and especially in Florida, because I don't care how good the soils are, if you live in Florida, they're going to be sandy, and so if anything touches the ground, it's going to get to the aquifer. I don't care if it's 2 days, I don't care if it's 10 years, but eventually it's going to find its way down to the water. But okay, this is the good thing. Waste management, and back in the day, before there was fertilizer that you could buy in a bag at Lowe's, people used to always compost their own chicken manure and horse manure and cattle manure and pig manure. And all these things got mixed together with their kitchen scraps and everything. And that's how they made their fertilizer. And in this capacity, composted manure can be really great. It can really help improve the forage by being a slow-release fertilizer, helping to kill weed seeds, helping to add organic matter to the soils, which add good microbes. All these things are really beneficial. And that's just good waste management can help do that. Okay, so spreading fresh manure, is this an option? It is an option potentially. It depends where you live. It depends on the county, state, area laws, where you are, as to whether or not fresh manure spreading is an option. It's not bad. It can be done. The problem with spreading fresh manure is that it often, we all buy hay that comes from different places. And every single hay, and I don't care how good it is, the hay always tends to have some weed seeds in it, or tends to have some weeds. And what happens is the horses eat those weeds, and the seeds go completely undigested through the animal, okay? And then they go out into the grass, and then they have a beautiful place to germinate. And so that spreading fresh manure can oftentimes actually help promote weed seed infiltration and weed infiltration on your pastures. But when you compost your manure, if you're going to be at proper temperatures like 130 to 150 degrees, you're going to kill approximately 90% of weed seeds, so that will also help improve your pastures. Okay, and I talked about organic matter. I've really, in the past few years, come to learn the wonderful benefits from improved soil health, and organic matter as a big component in improved soil health. I think I mentioned before about the good microbes, the healthy microbes. Organic matter, it becomes a slow-release fertilizer. All these things, especially when you live like where we live in Florida with the sandy soils. You see this top left picture, which I'm going to bring down here. You see these nice sandy soils. Now this is an overstocked pasture. And actually what you see down here, this is all weeds. And the reason that this is all weeds is because what's happened here, because there is no grass to utilize any of this area, what we end up getting is runoff in heavy rains. And so then there's all the weed seeds because they just let the manure out or they spread the manure. And so now the weeds come and they run off to the next property, which is actually the neighbor's property. And all of these are weeds that have come from the seeds coming from the horses. And that's one of the bad things about spreading fresh manure. Let me look at some of these questions. I see people. Seasonal differences. 5 acres seems perfect for my 2 horses in spring, summer. Okay, well, and this is something I am going to talk about. Seasonal differences. This is a good point for me to talk about. Getting a bad echo. Gwen, do you see the echo? There's also someone writing about an echo here, but I see Tony. But in regards to the seasonal differences, a lot of that, Allison, may be because you're mowing too short and at the end of your season, which is causing your grass to get denuded more heavily. Sounds fine on my headset. Okay. Stop mowing in October. Okay, Allison, when you stopped mowing in October, what was the height of your grass? What height did you mow your grass down to on your last mowing? 4 to 6 inches. Okay, well that's good. And then in that instance, part of that's going to be management. You're just going to have to supplement the horses with more hay to keep them from debriding and denuding the paddocks so much, or actually keep them off the paddocks for some period of time. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a dry lot, because that's an option that you might want to have. So at any rate, so that's the thing about organic matter. Compost, that's what can help you. This is something you might also utilize in addition to some other management, like getting a dry lot, keeping the horses, rotating your pastures more effectively, even cutting down the larger pastures into small areas. That can be helpful sometimes. Okay, so this is where everyone says composting, it's too much trouble. It's really not, and I want to show you. We'll stop at this point to talk about, and actually a lot of people here do compost, so I already know people are very positive about it. But, okay, here's my arrow. These are what they call static air piles, air tubes. What this is just PVC, and if you can see the little holes in each one, and down here, and here, and here, and here. What these are holes that are actually drilled into the PVC pipe. They're about ½ an inch. And what their purpose is to help infiltrate more air into the manure, which helps the microbes work more effectively, and that can help your composting. By doing this, the person who is actually doing this whole 3-bin system, this is a beautiful little system, they don't have to then turn the manure because the air is being infiltrated in by the tubes. It's called static air composting. And again, this is a system that's really easy. I'm going to show a couple varying pictures of things to use and things to utilize. And I might, guys, if you want to print for me, if you have any kind of specific composting type of bin system that you use, you feel free to write that on the side. Okay, so most of us composted in here, which is good. We have an interest. But for those of you who don't know, composting is it is a mixture of decaying organic substances. True finished compost is cold and inert. However, it does contain microbes and healthy flora, healthy microbes, and it's very beneficial. Good bacteria. Again, 90% of weed seeds have been destroyed. So it really has so many things and can help so much in terms of maintaining your pasture grass, decreasing pesticide usage, decreasing your need for herbicides, etc., etc. And again, here's our static air tube pile, and this is all manure. All this is manure around here. And then this is just a nice static air pile in here. And I showed this picture, okay? This is what it looks like underground. And I can go caving down here in Ocala, and it's so amazing because you can go under and actually see what we have down in Florida is called karst topography, where it's limestone. And I know around the country there are other areas that have this kind of topography. It's a limestone topography, and it can be infiltrated and permeated by the water very easily. And so if your water is carrying excessive nutrients, all that goes down. All the nutrients go down all through this stream and into the aquifer, and then you get your well, and then you drill your well up, and then the nutrients go back up into our water. So there's actually several different kind of compost systems, but I'm just going to give you a few ideas that you can use. And there's just, I hate to say Google it, but you really can Google it, and you can learn so many ways. And I do really stress to everybody that everyone needs to get involved with their extension. I am an extension agent, and as an extension agent, I work for a land-grant university, and land-grant universities are all around the country. President Lincoln actually gave land to states all over the country so that we could. What we do in extension, it's a partnership of federal, state, and county government and the university. And so basically what I do is I take the science and the research from the university and I bring it out to people in a working form. Every state is going to have an extension, and what you should do is Google extension like Michigan. Talk to your extension agents because they're the livestock agents. There's a lot of agents that are extremely knowledgeable, and they can help you with compost systems. They can help you learn about your soils more. They can help you with all kinds of different things. Oh, I see. O2 compost. Yes, O2 compost is a great system, and I have a picture of it later on that I'm going to show you. They make a great system that is forced air, which I'll talk about. It's the forced air that you see, forced air here. I'm going to show you a picture of that. It works really. It's a wonderful system. But regardless, I really stress that everybody try to get proper information from the online. And so I was talking about extension. If you look for anything that is .edu, that means education. So you know it's coming from a university. So you know it's coming from most likely extension. So it's going to be science-based. It'll be fact-driven material, and that's something that you can really trust that information. Okay, you can also go to your extension in your county, in your state, to get information that you need about compost systems, pasture, grass, fertilization, all that information. Extension has all of that information for you. Okay, so someone just mentioned the O2 compost system. This is a fabulous O2 compost system. I really love this. It's a two-bin system that you can see here. This is called forced air. And so what you do is you put the manure in here, and then as it fills up, that's where you put the boards down on each one of these. If you can all see the little green arrow that I'm moving. And then on this side is the motor. Okay, this is the back of the barn, where this is air pipes going from each one of these bins, okay? And it's being done by just a little blower that they just have plugged into a regular socket, very simple system, and it works beautifully, and it produces some really fantastic compost. This farm is in Florida, and they have, I believe they have 3 horses. Yeah, and okay, Allison, so some extensions have had significant budget cuts, and that is unfortunate. That's the problem. You know, everybody's looking for money. But if you can't find something, you're always welcome to contact me. And I have, hopefully you can have my information at the end. I think I have it. But please feel free to always contact me. I always stress that you try to contact your extension agent specifically, because each state and each county has different soil types, different grasses, etc., etc. So it's best to get people in your area that are truly knowledgeable. But for any question that you're not finding answered in terms of manure management, composting, legislation, things like that, best management practices, please feel free to always try to contact me. Oh yeah, and Holly also has Holly has the link for extension agents, and I will provide that later in the talk. Okay, here's another manure compost bin, and I love this one, because if you all see the tarp that they put here, and what this does is it controls the water, because if you get, like Florida has really heavy rains, and if we get those really heavy rains, you're going to saturate your pile, and that's going to make it too cool, because there's a fine line. You want your compost to be like a wrung out sponge, and if it's going to get doused by rain, certainly you're going to have more than that. And as a recommendation to people, I am going to discuss that if anybody has buckets and not automatic waters in their stalls, when you clean your buckets, just throw that water that you were going to just throw on the ground, just throw that on top of your pile. And that will aid in adding water. So you're adding water, which will help save the water, put the water to another use as opposed to just dumping it out, and also save you having to add more water onto your pile. So that's another way to work it. Okay, plexiglass hinged roof. Look at this, the whole system. Air tube, removable slats. You see all these things? This was cost her $250 on this farm. This is old fence boards, and I know every farm has old fence boards. She bought this little plexiglass thing. I think she actually found that at a junk store. Then just put little snaps on the thing on each board and each pole, which half of this, like I said, it's just broken old fence boards and things. The whole system cost less than $300. And this, again, this is a 3-horse system also. And she's very careful with her manure removal, so she has very little shavings. And again, she has a static air here to help bring air into it to help compost it more efficiently and easier. Because she doesn't have, if you have a front end loader, that's a great way. If you make the bins big enough, to accommodate a front end loader. That way the turning can be done for you, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you're all by yourself and you're one person and you just don't want to turn it, you can, by putting the air tubes into the manure, it will really help infiltrate more air into it, which will help compost things more quickly. And I forgot to put up, I know that there's a large percentage of you that already do compost, but for those of you who don't compost, are you interested, Gwen, if you could put this up, are you interested in learning how to add composting to your manure bag? Are you interested in learning about doing that as a practice? For those of you who don't do it, do you just want to continue doing what you're doing? What's your opinion? Oh, that's good. Great, great. Well, that's great to hear. I can't stress it enough in terms of cost savings, benefits. It's a great, you know, it's a funny one for me because remember years ago when, you know, organic became like the cool thing. Well, back in the day, everybody had organic. There was no fertilization to get from a bag. You had to fertilize. You had to compost your cow manure and your horse manure and your chicken manure. That's the only way we got nutrients. Okay, so that's great that everyone wants to go back to that because truly, that's the healthiest thing we can do for handling our manure and helping Mother Earth. And along those lines, what we see here, and I know this is common, and like I said, I have managed farms myself that I had this. This is not composting. To just stockpile your manure and let it sit and say, oh, it's composting, that's really not composting. It will decompose after a period of time, but to truly compost, it is going to require at least some amount of commitment, even if you turn it just once a week, even if you're just adding it and rotating it, even if you're just making sure the water level is like a wrung out sponge, even if you're just taking temperatures once a week, that's more active composting. And of course, best case scenario, this would be contained on an impervious surface like a concrete or hard packed clay with a roof structure over top of it. And that way all those things would help prevent leaching of the nutrients before it's composted and held up and bound in a more slow release form. Okay, windrow composting, another system, and I do realize these are very expensive items and not for everybody. But if, again, we talked about a front-end loader. If you have a front-end loader, this is a really good way just to do, these are windrow piles, which is just this pile of, this is a windrow, which is just turned manure, and this turner actually goes and rotates it around. It's a beautiful system, and you can see this is a local farm. And this was horse manure, now it looks like black gold. It's really beautiful stuff. So, but if you don't have this very nice machine, you can use your front end loader and just build the same system. And you can see that this is more freshly taken out of the stall manure and that this is composted. Then this used to be this, and it's pretty amazing. It's just time and a little bit of management that can help you with that. Okay, there are a few other things that I want to discuss. The dry lot. I talked about this. And how many people in this talk tonight, does anyone have a dry lot on their property, on their farm? Gwen, if you could put that up, please. That's great. Those are really good numbers. It really makes me happy. This is a good group. I think you're very attentive and very on the ball on your management methods. This is really nice to see. Yeah, a dry lot can be one of the cleanest places on the farm, really. It's a great way if you have, let's say you have ponies, and we all know that there's only two kinds of ponies, those that are foundered and those that are going to. So, you know, certainly those little buggers need to get managed in the summer, perhaps watch their grass intake, manage their hay intake. If it's a small enough lot, it can be a nice little turnout for a horse that is coming off of stall rest. There's a lot of benefits to the sacrifice area, and it also can be utilized to help grass in your other parts of your farm by keeping horses, giving them the ability to be out, not worrying about grass, giving them supplemental hay. And then, of course, I do really recommend that you pick these things cleanly and routinely instead of just dragging, or I suggest that you pick it because, like I said, because it's just dirt, the nutrients can't get utilized. And so the most efficient thing you're going to do is take the manure from those piles and then add them to your spreader or your compost bin or wherever you hold your manure from your stalls. Just I would take the manure from the fields, from the dry lot, and manage it that way because it'll really help you. It also helps you with worms, and it's just a much better situation. But the dry lot is, again, this can be a great way to help save your grass, help keep the horse have turnout. It has a lot of benefits. Okay, routine soil testing. This is something I really want to stress also. If you have not soil tested recently, this is something that should be done on every farm all over the country. I don't care where you are, because prior to adding fertilization, you should soil test to get your pH, phosphorus, potassium. They'll give you a nitrogen base. There's you can get micronutrients. You can get all kinds of things tested with your soil test. That will give you the answers of how much should I lime, should I add this kind of fertilizer, should I add phosphorus or nitrogen, does it need nothing? I'm reading some questions here, I apologize. How much time should horses spend on dry lot versus grassy pastures? Okay, Allison, that's a really, I can't give you 1 hour, 2 hour, 5 hour. Potentially they could be out there all the time if they're getting supplemental hay. It depends on the horse's need. It depends on your farm. And a lot of, unfortunately, also the problem with pastures, grasses are very different all around the country. They have different management methods. So this is really a thing where I use the visual look to determine if your grass is getting below 3 inches and you have the ability to rotate your pasture and rotate your horses off, be that into the dry lot or to another field, horses should not be grazing lower than 3 inches, because at that point what's going to happen is besides the fact that it rips the grass out of the ground, it will really denude the root below. It's not so much what you see above the soil with grass that talks about the health. It's really what's below. Down here we have Bahia grass, and the Bahia roots, when they're really healthy, they can be sometimes 3 feet long. And what that will do to help the health of your grass is incredible. But when you're continually getting your grasses into like 3 inches and less, 3 or fewer inches, you're going to really not allow the root system to grow. And that is what's going to really cause the demise of your paddocks. So in terms of how much time, that's very much dependent on the farm you have, how many horses, your rotational abilities, and this might be, I don't know where you are, Allison, but I would Virginia. Okay, well I know Virginia Tech is a very good school, and they do have an extension, and there are a lot of horse people out there because we all know Virginia is a good state for horses. So I would contact them and have them come out and kind of take a look of what you have in an assessment, and they could probably help you. Yeah, Tony, ryegrass is great. Yes, and that's actually an excellent point, because there are cool season grasses and there are warm season grasses. What Tony's talking about is the ryegrass is a winter grass. Okay, and what rye can do is it will add added nutrients for the winter, so that not only are they not denuding the warm season grass that then goes dormant in the winter, they're also getting nutrients. So there's a lot of, that's something to consider. Is you might want to consider seeding for your warm season and seeding for your cool season, so you can have some grazing possibilities all year round. Okay, so we're coming to the end here, so I really want to stress everyone to check out the Equine Land Conservation Resource. They have a BMP guide, which is really fantastic. Easy read, and it's, if you can see the link down below. Let's see, and I think Holly wrote that up there. My arrow is wanting not to work, but just look down where it says, you know, elcr.org, best management practices. It's a really great tool, and you can keep it on your computer. You can download it. It's something that you'll have for yourself all the time. And also, yeah, please, I want to stress this, because, you know, without land, we don't have horses, and not all of us want to just spend all our time going around in a ring. And even those of us who spend a lot of time in the ring, we still like to get out on the trail. So it's essential that we have land to maintain these things, and there are great organizations like ELCR that can really help us maintain that. So that's a whole great website for you to see. Okay, so sort of in summary, you need to think about developing a manure plan, and not only because, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, legislation's coming. If your state doesn't have it already, and certain states like New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Maryland, a lot of those states, California, Florida, Texas, a lot of states can have some potentially very strict legislation depending on where you are. So get a manure plan. Make it a priority. And again, see, my arrow just won't work. The top left picture is that compost bin facility I showed you that the woman made for about $250. If you're going to spread, you make sure you're keeping it within acceptable rates. Please don't spread so thickly that you're covering the grass, because that's really not effective spreading, and it's not going to help the health of your grass at all either. You want to look into some alternative methods, composting, which also, just so you know, when you compost your manure, you're going to decrease the amount, the volume, by potentially up to 60%, depending. Okay, but figure about you're going to get at least a 30% decrease in matter volume when you compost your manure, which is really nice to know also. And don't forget, it kills up to 90% of weed seeds. It has a lot of great benefits. Okay, if you're spreading, and especially, like, I use Florida as an example, obviously, because I'm here, and we have county legislation in some counties. We have state legislation, and the thing you need to be careful with is to make sure that you are keeping records. You know, that's just good as a barn practice period. But like if you're having it hauled away, keeping records, all those things give you justification, and it is a record of how you've been managing. So if there is legislation, there are ways to keep you ahead of legislation and keep you safe. If you're going to compost on site, again, I can't stress the soil addition. It really, what it does, what organic matter can do to benefit a soil, it's just fantastic. And it is a lot easier to set up than everybody realizes. In fact, Tony, who is one of our listeners tonight, they set up a beautiful system on their farm, and it's, you know, just a few horses, and it's not, you know, it doesn't take some unbelievable feat to get it done and then managed. Like I said, you can go fancy. You can get an O2 compost system, which is a beautiful system, and you can go really simple and just put a little pad down. I mean, you have a whole lot of options available in terms of composting systems. Okay, I don't care what you're spreading, fresh manure or compost, this is not an appropriate place to spread, and that's something to consider on every farm. If you have hills, if you have wet spots, if you get the kind of runs and runoff and pond-like situations that you see in this picture, please don't spread there, because it's just it's just going to get carried. Whatever you're spreading will get carried with that water, and eventually it make its way to the aquifer, and most likely having excess nutrients, which we're trying to avoid, and that's the whole point. Okay, Rhonda, I see in Minnesota you are not required to have records. Okay, which is great, and that's great. Well, so it's under 50 animals. Okay, now, and this is something else I want to stress to everybody, and it's not to scare everybody, but we just need to be proactive, because it's 50 horses now, and then maybe 25, and you know, and legislation is a good thing, and the point of legislation is to protect our water, and it's very beneficial. However, you know, we all want to stay here, and we all love the horse, and we all want to be here, and we want to continue to have them. And that is going to require all of us just you don't necessarily have to keep your records accurately as if this were a commercial operation, if it's just your backyard farm, but it does behoove us to keep some type of record and some type of chart, receipts, things like that, just so it's known, so that when legislation does come, we're already doing it as a practice, and it's really simple for us. Okay, so what's ideal for a farm? That's not so ideal, but that is, okay? And I will also say in the middle, the picture to the right, the middle bin, that's actually composted horse manure. And look at that. That looks like black soil that you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and have to buy it in a bag. And that's what they made. And actually what they do is they use that, I still can't get my arrow to work. They use that middle bin, the composted material, they use that all where the edges of their paddocks tend to get thin. They use that to help keep their grass healthy. And it does a great job. It's amazing stuff. And that's just time and a little bit of work. And this is a farm that has 70 horses, and you think, oh, who would want to do that? But that this is an ideal situation, the picture to the right. Okay. I can't stress this enough because every state has different legislation, and now we're going to talk about commercial versus hobby farm, because like she said, as she was saying, Rhonda said that 50 or fewer horses don't need records. Well, and that's sort of, it depends. In the state of Florida, commercial that goes on a tax. It's not so much the number of animals. Unless you have over 500, then you're considered to be a CAFO, which is the concentrated animal feeding operation, which I'm guessing is not too many people on this line. However, it may be go taxes. You may have number of horses. It depends what your state and county legislation is. And this is, again, something else Extension can help you get that information. Okay, commercial versus hobby. There may be specific legislation. I talked about the big horse shows. And again, Holly already showed the picture about Extension, or the link to Extension, but here it is again. And you can see it up here. Holly has it written up here to the left in the chat box. Hobby farms, generally no regulations. But like in Florida, I'll give you an example. We already have what's a quote-unquote volunteer hobby farm manual. But, you know, if they've already gone to the trouble of making it in print, you know, our water is a valuable resource. We can't live without water. Again, there are reasons for the legislation, but, you know, we need to be thinking proactively and be thinking ahead about, just because it's not legislated today doesn't mean that it may not get legislated. So we need to be careful, regardless if you have one horse or if you have 500. We just need to start thinking a little bit more proactively. National, state level, county legislation. Okay, each thing, there is national legislation, that's EPA, and I did not write, and I apologize. State level legislation is called DEP. EPA is the Environmental Protection Agency. DEP is the Department of Environmental Protection. That's state. EPA is national. Generally, it's state legislation that you're going to get. And then, of course, there's county legislation. In my county, the county legislation we have, now the state legislation overrides the county legislation for specific instances. However, our county has legislation that they've worked very carefully because we have so many horses where I live. The state legislation, the county legislation is very similar, and you need to check to see which one overrides one, just whether it be state or county has precedence, just to make sure you're doing the right thing in your area. Rhonda says in Minnesota Extension, it's hard to find. Oh, okay, grants. The Soil and Water Conservation Districts, Rhonda, that's excellent. Soil and Water Conservation District is another area, another venue in which you could get some very good education and some needed help. You should Google just Soil and Water Conservation Districts, and like for us, we have Marion Soil, and that's in each county. Okay, we'll have these districts depending on where you are. I know that like there's a Soil and Water Conservation District in Washington State that's very active, and I wish I knew where they were in the state. But trying to Google them if you're having trouble finding extension information. The soil districts are excellent. That's great. Thank you, Rhonda. Okay, some government websites. Again, EPA, the Clean Water Act, which is where all this came from because it started with clean water. And again, don't forget to check your local extension or conservation districts wherever you can find information. NRCS, that's National Resource Conservation Service. They do have some information for cost share, although that money is typically difficult to get for horse farms. And again, that's something where I would check your individual state and individual counties to see if you might get some cost share availability to help you make manure bins, make compost bins, do cross fencing, help with various things. Okay, there's some composting information. A few of these websites are just outstanding. I just can't say enough to go. The extension.org is a great venue. Extension.org has so much good information that it actually, sometimes I go on and I can't believe all the good information out there. And it's a great website to just kind of have in your favorites list. And you can go into all kinds of different things, be it My Horse University, manure management. You can learn about soils. You can learn, there's so much on extension.org. That's a great web page to go, a website to go looking for. This is a very good webcast through My Horse University on horse manure and a renewable resource. I watched it the other day. It's outstanding, and I really recommend this. And then there's another one. This is from Washington State, a guide to composting horse manure. And there's more. Again, you can Google all these things. There's so much information that's out there on proper composting. And I do want to stress one more time, you either want to go with extension.org or anything that has .edu written after it to make sure you're getting accurate information. And that's not to say that other websites don't have accurate information, but what the universities do is have science-based, fact-driven materials. So it's not like someone just saying, well, yeah, what you should do. This is all science-based, and so it's really information that you can trust. Okay, one more time. If you need more help, you go ahead and contact your local extension agents, extension.org. And don't forget, please don't forget about equine land conservation, because they have their BMP information is a valuable manual, and I really recommend that. Or just talk to them, because they're horse people, and they're very aware of the issues, and they're very aware of what's going on. Any questions? Does anyone have any questions? Okay, well, Holly, I'm going to turn this over to you, or Gwen, or whoever, but thank you very much. And if anyone has any questions, please do not hesitate.
Okay, it looks like we have a couple people maybe typing something in the chat. Let's see if there are a couple questions. We have a few minutes left.
You're all very welcome. Anita, yes, I have a lot of information on anaerobic digestion. There is a lot out there, and I suggest, again, you try your extension agent, but if they can't help you, you can contact me, because I have a lot of information about anaerobic digestion, gasification, pyrolysis. There's several different methods of essentially composting and getting like manure to energy, not just anaerobic digestion, but I can help you, and I can also help you, because there are different sites that can show you how to actually make your own little anaerobic digester.
Looks like we also have a question from Marilyn about anywhere to find some funding to help construct bins.
Okay, well, that's going to come into cost share, and that's, again, what you're really going to need to do there, because there is national money called EQIP, and that's through National Resource Conservation, but they're not I don't want to say they're not horse friendly, but they really tend to give their money more for like crop production, cow calf, those kind of agriculture products. So you might try doing like your soil and conservation district is an excellent source to utilize, because oftentimes they will get cost share money and they can help you with if they don't have it, they'll help you where to find it. Soil and conservation districts are actually can sometimes be the best resource to find out about that. Your state Department of Environmental Protection, go ahead, ask your extension agents, check into your county for cost share. Like I know with our county, there's a lot of things that I'm getting cost shared for up to 75% of hard costs, meaning like the concrete, the wood, those kinds of materials to build something. Some of that can be up to 75% cost shared.
Okay, well, it looks like we're maybe finished up here with our questions. So I'd like to definitely thank Jamie, Holly, and the Equine Land Conservation Resource for this presentation this evening. This has been wonderful, and of course I'd like to thank all of our participants as well for your great questions and so forth. As listed on the screen here, we will be sending you an email tomorrow with a link to a survey. And I did put the link on the slide, and I'm actually also going to put it in the chat feature right here. And your participation in the survey will definitely help us to improve our webcast, and will also give us information on potential future topics for webinars as well. So if you give a few minutes for your feedback, that would be great. Allison, I see you have a question down there. Can we get the full PowerPoint? What we'll be doing is we will be posting this recording on our My Horse University website. And when you get the email about the survey, there'll be a button on there with a link linking you to all of our archived webcasts, and it will be listed right there. So you'll be able to access it right at our website. Our next My Horse University and e-extension free webcast actually will not be until February. We're going to take the month of January off, and we're kind of finalizing the rest of our spring webinars. So we will be having webinars in February, March, April, and possibly May, but we're just still kind of getting those things finalized. So as soon as we do have that finalized, we'll be sending out information through our eTips Equine Expert newsletter, and we'll be putting information on our website as well. So once again, make sure to become a fan of My Horse University and e-extension HorseQuest on Facebook, and make sure to check out our websites for upcoming events, promotions, and things like that. And let's see here. Okay, hold on, got a question here from Fiza. I signed in as a guest. Will I get the survey email? If not, how do I get on the list? Fiza, if you register for the webcast, you will get the email. Otherwise, you can go to this link right here to access the survey. And if you want to make sure to join our mailing list, you can email us at info@myhorseuniversity.com, which is on the screen here, but I also just put it in the chat feature as well. So remember that the webcast was recorded, and like I mentioned, we're going to have it up on our website. And if you have any questions or comments, please email us. So thank you, everybody, and we hope you all have a great evening.